So we start with our functional behavior assessment. We have to do that collaboratively. It can't just be me or somebody coming in and observing the kid and figuring it all out. And proactive. And the whole goal is to say, what's the function of behavior? Remember I said, what are they trying to get, or what are they trying to avoid? Those are usually the two biggies. Then we need to teach the replacement behavior. So it might be teaching key rules and skills, structure of our environment, functional consequences. And then we move down to facilitating success, and that might mean we alter routines in our environment for the kid. We look at instructional prompts that will be helpful for the student to be successful. We teach where the student can be successful. And then we enhance reinforcement for desired behavior, more immediate reinforcement. And this is hard for teachers because it's a lot of times what we're teaching the kid to do is a behavior they think they should already be doing. It's really hard to reinforce a kid when they're doing something that you think they should be doing anyway, right? Think about it. Well, yeah, I'm not reinforcing him for mowing the lawn because he's supposed to mow the lawn anyway, right? Why should I reinforce him? Oh, that was my husband. My son, I'm not reinforcing him for putting his dirty laundry in the basket because he's supposed to do that anyway, right? But I'm still teaching him. He's only 9, doesn't happen every time, so I'm still teaching him. So if I reinforce him, I'm really glad you got that one sock in the laundry basket. Now, do you think you could pick up all the other clothes and put those in the laundry basket too? Much different than punishing him for not doing what I asked him to do 15 times. So then we want to enhance the reinforcement by by immediate reinforcement, and then we want to look at consequences for undesired behavior. And that's where I want to talk about differential reinforcement quickly. And then celebrate and fade the artificial components. Maybe we've changed some environmental conditions and other things that we can fade. Eventually we won't have to have those in place. We can fade some of those immediate reinforcers to more intermittent, less frequent. And we can take away any negative consequences that we might have put in place if the student did do the behavior that they weren't supposed to do. Okay. So this is just kind of a model of the pathway that I was just talking about, and looking at the idea of replacement behavior. So we have a setting event, and then there's a trigger. That's the antecedent. And if you can learn what the triggers are, you'll never get to the rest of the path most of the time. If you know what the kid's trigger is, your chances of being able to intervene right there and be prevented are much higher than waiting until the behavior occurs, right? Make them win-win. So I had a kiddo that used to get off the bus and always wore a baseball cap. If he got out of the bus with a baseball cap pulled down over his eyes, I knew we were going to start our day very differently than I would on a normal day. If he came up off the bus and his baseball cap was normal, didn't have his hood over his head, all right, normal routine, normal start to the day. And I adjusted the environment based on this kid's emotional, mental health situation at the time. So I saw what some of the triggers were. I could have forced him to do normal routine, but it wasn't helping him, wasn't making the situation positive, and he ended up usually blowing up. And then we'd have to deal with the aftermath of that, as opposed to helping him be successful and adjust to the routine as he was ready. So, antecedent, the problem behavior, we have to figure out, identify what that is, and understand what the consequences that maintains that problem behavior. Me yelling at my daughter maintained her sassy behavior. I have to admit, she still is that way sometimes, but not like she was a while ago. Okay? What's maintaining that behavior? And what's a replacement behavior? What's something we can teach them to do that's going to get the same consequence, maintain them get that consequence that they really want? In this case, yelling isn't a good example. And then what are some objectives, some steps that we might need to go through to get to the replacement behavior, to get to the behavior that we want to have happen. Okay? So it's kind of sequencing out behavior, just like we sequence out reading or sequence out math. Well, if they do this, then we're getting closer. And if they do this, they're getting closer. And then they do this, they're getting closer. So I'll give you kind of an extreme example quickly. We had a kiddo, he was probably middle school age, and he came to our school. At that time, I taught not in the public class, in the mainstream classroom. I had pretty severe kids coming in. And he would get off the bus. Well, first of all, he wouldn't get off the bus. So we had to physically escort him off the bus. Then we got to the point where he'd get off the bus on his own, and he'd stand outside the classroom. And I mean outside, because this was a portable. So he'd stand outside the classroom all day. He didn't just stand, he usually sat like this the whole day. Wouldn't come in. So we let him. Okay, well, he's here. That's better than him not being here. So we'll start with that. We'd walk out. Scott, are you thirsty? I lived in Arizona. You hot? You want to come in? Okay. So this went on for days. He'd come to school. He'd stand outside the classroom. On and on. Then he started standing by the door, because we'd leave the door kind of open. He'd look in, and he'd watch. He'd come, stand, watch. Wouldn't come in, but he'd stand and watch. And then, pretty soon, he'd step through the door. And all the time, we're reinforcing him. Wow, I'm really glad you're in the classroom. Do you want to join us? Wow, it's really nice to have you here. Do you want some ice cream? No. I'm just kidding. We just acted as if it was normal for his behavior to be this way. He had some school phobia or something. He had a lot of things, but that was one of them. Pretty soon, Scott's in the classroom. He's part of the class. He's being reinforced like the other kids. He's participating. We never had to do one negative consequence. We never did any punishing. All we did was encourage and reinforce. Close approximation. So wasn't it much better that he was standing and looking in the classroom than standing against the wall and not seeing anything going on? Wow, that's getting closer to what we want. So it's pretty extreme behavior and a pretty extreme example, but it shows how that competing pathways works. So that we had some desired criteria. We wanted him to get off the bus. We wanted him to be by the classroom. We wanted him to be looking in or standing in the doorway, squatting usually, so we could get to the desired behavior. And we reinforced him all the way. Those are the kids, I wonder what's happened to them. It's been years. So this is just another way to look at the competing pathway. So let's talk a few minutes about differential reinforcement. I know we started late, so I have no idea what time it is because my clock says 57 minutes that I've been yakking. Thank you. So differential reinforcement. This is a user-friendly reinforcement-based intervention to reduce negative behaviors. It aligns with the strategies and positive behavioral supports for reinforcement. And the purpose is to increase frequency of desired behavior and reduce the undesired. And to be able to reinforce desired behavior and ignore undesirable behaviors. So that's kind of what I was doing with my little Kira. I ignored it when she was sassy. And reinforce if the undesirable behavior does not occur. Wow, Kira, that was really nice how you asked me sweetly to give you money. But she wasn't sassy. She's delightful, actually, my daughter. I think all moms say that. Okay, so I'm going to just tell you some terms. Differential reinforcement of incompatible behaviors. That means to reinforce for keeping hands folded in lap rather than touching another student. So we're reinforcing the positive behavior, we're ignoring the negative. Alternative behavior, which would be considered DRA, we're reinforcing for squeezing a squish ball rather than picking at their head. So we're reinforcing an alternate behavior. It's good that you're squeezing the ball instead of doing some self-stimming on your body. Because what's more appropriate? Sitting there picking at your head, or having a ball on your lap that you're just squeezing, or some other kind of sensory toy. And you know, that's the other thing we have to think about. What's the closest to normal looking behaviors we can teach kids, right? So they look typical. Differential reinforcement of other behaviors to reinforce for any other behavior that's going on with the kid but the head picking. Anything, right? We're not even going to focus on head picking, we're just going to say, wow, you're sitting in your seat. Wow, you got all your work done. Wow, we're totally not even focusing on the head picking. And then low rates of behavior, so differential reinforcement of low rates of behavior, reinforcing for talking at only 3 times rather than 12 times per class. So when a kid's behavior decreases, wow, you raised your hand this many times today, and I only counted 3 talk outs. That's awesome. Right? So those are some terms that you might hear. And with differential reinforcement, we look at the least intrusive to the most. And so level 1 would be the strategies I just shared with you. And reinforcement of other behaviors would be the least of all the intrusive ones. I don't know why that's coming out so light there. This is a way to reduce behaviors without having to move the punishment or trying extinction. And the reinforcers are never removed to punish the student. Lots of times we remove reinforcers for the student, and that becomes a punishment in and of itself. Level 2 then is extinction. Level 3 is removal of a desirable stimuli. Think cell phone in my house, or computer, or Xbox. Those are all desirable things. So we can at that point use response cost. Do you all know what that is? If you do this, it's going to cost you. If you do not pick up your toys, I'll give you a really simple one. Here's my husband. You leave the light on, you owe me $1. It works. I never do it, but he does it, and the kids know that. But they turn their lights off now. They're tired of losing bucks. And then there's timeout as another level 3 removal of desirable stimuli, because you're actually removing the child from the environment itself. And then presentation of an aversive stimuli. Not probably happening a lot in the schools, and if it is, we should start looking at level 1, 2, and 3.